Welcome to Baby Jail Unlocked, the podcast where we peel back the layers of very common early childhood and education practices and ask, what's really going on here? I'm your host, Dr. Chloe Keegan, and today we're asking a very tough question. What if sticker charts and gold stars are doing more harm than good, especially for neurodivergent children? My guest today is Mel Yates, a first-generation graduate who qualified in 2008 with first-class honours in early primary education. For the past 12 years, Mel has been teaching and working with children experiencing high levels of social disadvantage and special educational needs. Her passion for inclusive, relationship-based teaching was shaped both by her early classroom experiences and her journey as a parent to a neurodivergent child, all of which have shaped and inspired her current PhD research. Mel's research explores what learning looks like in preschools that reject token-based reward systems in favour of intrinsic motivation and meaningful engagement with the voices of young children at its heart. Mel brings a trauma-informed, neuro-affirming lens to everything she does. Her ethos centres on nurturing autonomy, reducing coercive behaviour management systems, and creating classrooms where children can thrive without stickers, without shame, and also without the pressure or need to conform. If you've ever questioned whether sticker charts are not only bribery of children from adults, but methods that induce fear, traumatize children, and ultimately control children's entire being, this episode is for you. Welcome to Baby Jail Unlocked. Mel, you are very welcome to the Baby Jail Unlocked podcast. I cannot wait to get into all of this idea of sticker-free preschool or sticker-free parenting. Now, we've loads to cover, not only that, but also how that's informing your PhD research. And from what listeners can gather from the intro, there's a lot of links to neuro-affirming education, which I think people are going to find very inspiring. So just to get us started, can you talk to me a little bit about what inspired you around this idea in your PhD of sticker-free preschool or sticker-free teaching?
Thank you firstly for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Happy to have you.
My PhD was actually inspired by my son, who is neurodivergent. We started the process of diagnosis for him when he was in year 2, and he didn't get his diagnosis until he was just leaving year 6. So it's quite a long process. But it started off one day when he joined my year 1 class. Mm-hmm. I'd been out on training, and when I came back, my son was actually in the head teacher's office, absolutely beside himself. And the head teacher came in and he said, I'm really sorry, he's in my office, he's been here majority of the day. Apparently he was refusing to write. And I thought, well, why is he in this state? Because he's refusing to write. And apparently the supply teacher had asked him to do this piece of work. He'd refused to pick up his pencil. So they said, right, we're going to move you down from it was like a traffic light behaviour system. We're going to move you down from the green to the amber. And then they carried on and asked him again if he was going to do his writing, to which he said no. And I don't know the context of whether it was too difficult. Mm-hmm. But then it continued, it escalated, and he was moved down from the amber down to the red. And then at which point the head teacher was called in. He had a massive meltdown because he couldn't understand what had gone on. And then apparently was carried out of the classroom by 2 members of staff under his armpits because he refused to move, and then spent the rest of the afternoon having a complete distressed meltdown because of basically behaviour system that wasn't neuro-affirming. So although it was early in the days before he had his diagnosis, it doesn't mean that behaviour wasn't signalling a need for something. And we found out later on that he's actually hypermobile. So therein were the difficulties with his writing and things. So that kind of stirred my interest a little bit, because as he went through school, he wasn't the one that came home with the Star of the Week certificate or the one that had his whole body filled with stickers and things, because he found it difficult to conform to all the rules and all of the expectations and things. And it just kind of grew from there, really. And I know that in lots of schools, their behaviour systems look very similar to that, where everybody's expected to kind of start off with a new day, which is fine. But if things go wrong, it's largely because it signals that there's an underlying need, not because they're not trying to follow the rules and expectations within the classroom. So I've been wanting to do this for my PhD for quite a while, and I can't wait to actually share all my results and everything else with everybody.
I have to firstly start, Mel, to say what a frightening experience for you and for your child. I mean, aside of neurodivergent, their child, to go through something that's so traumatic, even to be listening on the receiving end of that story is frightening. So I can't imagine actually going through that as a lived experience. It's quite daunting and as I said, terrifying. And can you talk to me a little bit about this traffic light approach in a little bit more detail, or I suppose of what you know about it? Obviously, it's very punitive by the sounds of it. And then I do then want to discuss a little bit about the manhandling of your child then as an approach. That's certainly something that we need to dip into too. But certainly, yeah, the traffic light approach, is that something you've seen before? I've never heard of it now, but certainly something that's strange.
It was a few years ago, because my son's now 20. But I think the traffic light system is still kind of a system that's used a lot in schools. The DFE have said that 70% of schools use some sort of behaviour monitoring system that is similar to that. So the traffic light system, in essence, every day starts with every child's name on green. So this is a publicly displayed behaviour traffic light system, and literally like your traffic lights that you see while you're driving, you've got your green, your amber and your red, and everybody starts their day on green. Every day is a brand new day. We even used to give out stickers. It's good to be green, to promote it. It's good to be on that green spot and have your name there. And if you do the right thing, your name stays on green. So there's no movement in terms of if you've had a really good day, then you can move up. But if you're really good and you follow all the rules, then you remain on green. If there's something that goes wrong in your day, if you have an argument with someone, and children in reception and nursery year one, especially those with either social communication difficulties or challenging behaviours because they don't understand the rules and the consequences, they might move down onto the amber because something's gone wrong. And amber's supposed to be some kind of warning to say, you've not made the right choice, right in front of everybody, we're moving your name down.
And this is obviously dependent on the adult's interpretation as well. Like if they decide, yes, I'm going to consider the context, or no, I'm not going to consider the context. It's very based on the teacher. And then I'm thinking as well of the teacher that may flux between I'm so stressed to look, just behave.
Yeah, they're going to go quickly and go, do you know what? You're getting right on my nerves. You're going to move down onto that amber, especially for a child that doesn't remain calm all day, but has those moments where, you know, they get all stirred up and they get excitable, and you think, right, you're getting a bit silly now, calm it down a little bit. And in the classroom that happens a lot. But for some children who can't rein that in and find it difficult to just remain constant and regulated, that's really difficult. And those children are the ones like my son, who obviously he carried on being a little bit daft or not following the rules, and then they moved down to red, and then red is like a serious consequence. This is when this is escalated beyond the class teacher, and then somebody else might become involved, either to come in and say, right, you're not doing the right thing, and do the firm teacher and everything, and say, you need to be doing the right thing so that you can move your name back onto green. It's essentially coercive control, isn't it? It's directing children into doing what we want them to do and what our classroom needs them to do. And don't get me wrong, we need calm classrooms because it's conducive to learning, but it's behaviour charts at the detriment to some of the children who find it really challenging. And actually, if we're not meeting their need, then you're going to keep getting this sort of behaviour, aren't you?
And I'm just thinking, like you said there, of course, having like a calm, safe, but also active, classroom is what we're striving for. I can't imagine that fear, not only by your own son, but by his peers, witnessing and every day having that terror of, I better control myself. Oh, I better, stay still, or I better stay still. That is such fear that it's mongering in the classroom, that I can imagine not only will that live with children in the classroom, in the direct classroom, but you're living with that when you go home. You're thinking about it when you go to sleep. And then you're waking up. I can imagine that dread of, I hope I don't go to amber today. I hope I don't go to red. And essentially then, Mel, as well, it's a threatening system, because it's like, if you don't abide by what I say, you're going to be punished. Punished based on, like, spotlighted. Everyone's going to see you get marked down to orange, or brought out, carried out by adults physically. I can't imagine just being a parent, firstly, that can't control that system directly, because the school system, we have these policies, we have them in place. But then the child that says, I have to follow what the adult says. And if I think for myself, think differently, learn differently outside of their expected norm, I'm going to be punished. I'm going to be threatened. It's just frightening to think that, and again, it's frightening to think that it's so normalized. I know you said that this is from a few years ago, but there are still these behavior management systems that are just regurgitated in different ways, but like you've just described, have the exact same core components, which is do this or else.
And I think my son's journey all through school continued to also be in different forms of that as well. So because he wasn't able to conform to neurotypical rules, then it was other consequences. So that system continued all the way through primary school, but then in high school, he was also picked up for not sitting properly, sitting or fidgeting and things, and he couldn't follow. He was distracted, but his neurodivergence was the reason why he was distracted. And even with a diagnosis, that didn't stop it. So as a student going through high school, he regularly had detentions instead. So instead of the punitive, this is a public reward or punishment system, it then transformed into detentions and things. So that when he got to his GCSEs, I actually had an email saying, your son hasn't attended his GCSE revision sessions, which he's supposed to attend after school. So I thought, well, hang on a second. And I sent them a really long email back saying, all the way through high school, you've actually given my son detention after detention after detention for things that he's had absolutely no control over, like fidgeting and being able to maintain focus and attention and getting silly. And I get that. And not having his plan assigned. That was the largest thing, not having a plan assigned. So you've basically spent all these years punishing him with after-school detentions, and now you're asking him to attend an after-school revision session for his GCSEs after years of thinking that that's a punishment. So what's he going to actually gain from doing that? So if we don't change the system, and largely it's the children who are lower achieving or neurodivergent, they're the children that are likely to need that support later on. But if it becomes a consequence, then they're never going to get past it and see that it's actually needs to be supported instead, isn't it?
I'm just thinking as well, Mel, like the fact that it's the expectation of the school going, we've conditioned you from a very early age. So we expect you to do all these things as you're told now, as in there should be less punishment because you learned early on, the more punishment you get, the more punishment you're going to get. And to be honest, listening to your story, I'm like, your son, I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't go to school. Like, why would you? It sounds terrifying. It sounds punitive. And it sounds like he had no voice, and you had no voice in that situation, because you're constantly battling against what you know to be reasonable, as in, yes, it's very hard to concentrate for a long period of time. I mean, sitting at a conference or a workshop for 15 minutes, you're your memory, your concentration, everything will fade. And yes,
Yeah.
we learn how to tap ourselves back in. But as children, you're only cultivating, you're only learning those skills in the
And if you're
moment.
not interested, it's really difficult as well, isn't it? If you're learning
Yeah.
things that are relevant or not interesting, then it's really difficult to pay attention, isn't it?
And it's hard because you expect children to have all these interests in maths, for us, Irish, English, you've geography, history. Like, you don't have all those interests, you know, and it should have that. Well, we know it doesn't have the wiggle room to account for interest, but at least even teaching it in a way that can be interesting or inspiring that interest. Well, Mel, I want to then bring it back to then this idea of the escalation. So it went from verbal warnings through the traffic lights to then the physical manhandling of your son out of the room. Is that because he was on the red and he just didn't want to leave because of course he doesn't know, like, what have I done wrong? I'm just existing. What was the escalation for that manhandling, or was that a normal approach in the school?
I don't think it was necessarily even a normal approach. When I got back to the school, they said that he'd been moved down the traffic light system, and then he'd become upset when he was put down to red because he knew that he must have done something really terrible to get down to red, because that's the worst place to be. And I was actually a teacher at that school as well, and ironically, I'd moved him from his school to my school because he wasn't doing very well in his previous school. So I knew that he was struggling, but I think he'd only been at our school for maybe about a month. He hadn't been there long. But he, from what I can gather, he was very, very upset at having been moved, continued to be upset, and he was saying, no, I don't want to be moved down. So he was trying to express that he felt that it was wrong. And because he was disturbing the other children, they'd asked him to leave, and he then threw himself on the floor, I believe. So then he had to be picked up and carried. But because he was flailing his arms and his legs because he was in the midst of distress, it then apparently took 2 members of staff to take him out of the room. So I am surprised he did carry on going to school, to be honest.
The fact that your child, your son, showed such, you know, devastation. At first he being put on the red, and then the devastation of being told you have to leave. Like, so much isolation and exclusion involved in that in itself. And the fact that your son is responding with, you know, accurate emotions, as in, I'm upset over this. It shows that he has the awareness of the social norms, but he's meeting them where he can. You know, it's just, wow. And then, Mel, what then, for your own perspective then as a parent, did you see that was the most, you know, the biggest challenge trying to navigate all of this?
I think it's more difficult if you're a parent and a teacher. It's a very difficult balance, because you've got your professional hat and you've got your parental hat, haven't you? And you've got to, especially when you work in the same school as well, it's very difficult to voice your concerns, which I think is why the head teacher was so humble when I went to see him later on that day to establish what had happened. I think as parents, sometimes as well, you don't always get the fullest picture, do you? When something's gone wrong in school, you get a snapshot. So I always try to make sure that I get as much information when I speak to parents about incidents that have occurred in school. But for parents looking in, I suppose sometimes they don't always know the way that some of the behaviour systems work and things, and it's difficult to navigate. And I think things have changed more recently in the way that behaviour is managed. I don't know if it is necessarily as harsh as when my son was younger. When I look at our behaviour system in school now, our behaviour system has changed completely. We used to have a weather chart system, which was similar to the traffic light system, but there was at least a way up. But now our school's taken more of a relational restorative practice approach. And again, the parents, I don't think, fully understand what that approach is. So I think from parents looking from outside in, it's very difficult to gauge what your child's school is like, other than seeing some schools who have a zero tolerance and go, right, you've got to wear your school shoes, there's no negotiating, you've got to wear this uniform, it doesn't matter if you've got sensory differences. You still got to do that because that's our school rules, and that is, I suppose, portrayed as part of their behavioural policy. So it's trying to navigate that as parents, isn't it, and understand it deeply without having to go all the way through a school's behaviour policy that details X, Y, Z, which even sometimes doesn't explain it clearly enough.
And it's hard as a parent because if you're not in the space, say like me and you are, to the level of qualification or knowledge that we do get through working with children and in our profession, it can be very hard being a parent not in that space at all, because you're kind of wondering, well, what can I challenge and what is appropriate? And you do trust the education system to look after your child. That's the purpose of it. But, you know, I can imagine, especially parents navigating all those systems, it can be quite daunting, but also very isolating, because you might feel like, am I the only one dealing with this?
Yeah. We do explain to the children now. There is an element of we try hard to understand where the children are at, and we have those conversations with the parents to say, I know things haven't gone according to plan today. Things have gone wrong. Your child's got really upset, and I don't know, for example, they've bitten the child, which is really difficult to explain to the child who's been bitten, but also the parent of the child who's bitten somebody, because whilst you don't want to make excuses, you also want to accommodate the needs of both children. Both children have been emotionally upset by a situation such as that, but at least using a relational and restorative practice approach, you can have those conversations with the children and say, look, I understand that you got a little bit cross, you felt overwhelmed, and they weren't listening to you when you really wanted to have a go of that toy. But we do have to think about the way that we ask for things. And obviously you don't complicate it as much as that in nursery, but helping the children to navigate their way through it, rather than going, right, you need to sit in that chair over there and don't move until I come back to you and you have a think about what you've just done. Doesn't mean anything, does it? But then parents equally want, if their child's been bitten, well, what's happening to that child? What consequences are in place? Because we're still in the age of every action, every negative behavioural moment must have a consequence. Well, actually, the natural consequence is if that child keeps biting people, the children aren't going to want to play with them. So actually, there are other consequences. There are natural consequences that occur. I don't need to punish that child and say, you've bitten someone again, you need to go and sit outside the head teacher's office, because it's bad enough for their social and emotional adaptability in the classroom as it is, and they're having to navigate these experiences every day. So actually they're seeing far more consequences than your child who they have bitten as a result of a bit of a disagreement that they weren't able to explain properly.
And you've described it so wonderfully, is that example of keeping the child in the situation so that they can witness potentially the pain they've caused or the hurt they've caused. Whereas if you take them and exclude them straight away, you're denying them that social aspect, like you've said, the natural consequences that would be much more powerful, just as human beings, witnessing, oh, okay, I didn't realize it hurt them. I didn't realize it bled, or, you know, these things that they would see being in that actual moment would make so much more sense to them as a natural consequence. And like you then described, that idea of then being socially excluded, like that in itself is the child learning how to navigate social interactions. You can't bite someone and expect them to be your friend.
Yeah.
But that whole process then of authority feeling the need to come in and be quite heavy-handed to make a point or to condition the behavior kind of immediately, absolutely, as you're saying, is denying really the child the opportunity to learn. It's actually teaching the child that you're going to be punished by adults if you don't do as you say, which is exactly as you said, coercive behavior, you know, coercive behavior management systems that are built on telling children what to do. If you don't comply, you will be punished.
Yeah. They don't learn strategies as well, do they, to learn to regulate themselves through co-regulation. And I know some people just think that as soon as something's happened like that, that child needs telling off straight away. They need a firm tone, and they can't understand when you go up and say, just come with me a minute, sweetheart. Let's go and have a little talk about what's just gone wrong. Because if you go blazing in. All of a sudden you go, right, what are you doing? You shouldn't be biting or whatever. Straight away that child goes, ah, and it escalates the behaviour, and it makes it 10 times worse. It's like adding fuel to a fire, isn't it? But if you go over and you say, something terrible happened, let's go and see if we can sort this out, come on, we'll go and have a little chat together. And the importance of co-regulating and being able to de-escalate, not by offering a child a treat, but saying, should we go in somewhere quiet, because I can see that you're overwhelmed, you're finding things quite difficult, let's go and have a quiet 5 minutes. Then they're regulated, and then say, what went wrong, what caused you to hurt that person, is there something we can do to help, how is that person feeling? I think they might be really upset, what can we do to help? And then you're starting to build up their repertoire of, what can I do? I don't want to say sorry, because saying sorry is really difficult because I'm 4. What can I do? And giving them alternatives. Should we go and give them a hug? Would you like to take the sorry teddy? How else can we apologise to them? How else can we put it right? We'll give them a gentle hug, not a squeezy one that's likely to just go, but should we go and give them a gentle hug? And it's giving those children the coping strategies that actually, if it does go wrong, it's not the be all and end all, because I know I'll find a way to cope with that next time. So
it's really supportive of that social aspect every time. And you're also validating the voices of the child, because behavior is very much categorized as good versus bad when it shouldn't be. It should just be seen as it's behavior, but it's responding to something. It's responding to an environment, or, you know, an emotion internally. Maybe it's responding to a peer that we mightn't necessarily see the full context or the full picture as the child sees it. So the approach that you describe so beautifully, like, and it's so, I feel calm listening to it. You know, that environment of just being that calm, centered space for a child to come to you and feel like, okay, no matter what I do, at least I'll be heard. That in itself is so powerful. And I think absolutely, as you've described, we are missing that, because in schools, particularly in preschools, as I've found it, it's very much about managing children rather than responding or attuning to them.
I think some of the time as well, behaviours occur because children don't feel safe. And it isn't about, I don't feel safe because the doors aren't shut, or I don't feel safe because I might be able to get out on the street. It's about feeling emotionally safe, isn't it? It's feeling emotionally safe to be able to make a mistake, because if I make a mistake, we all learn from mistakes, don't we? I mean, how many times do we have to make a bit of a mess of things before we then learn from those mistakes? There's no way I'm doing that again. And when a child accidentally hurt somebody, it isn't because they're usually going over and going, right, I'm going to get something and I'm going to whack you with it. It's either because they've got carried away while they're playing, or I can think of one particular child, and things keep happening because of their understanding of a certain situation. I've got a little boy who finds things difficult sometimes because his language isn't quite as clear as his peers, so he can't actually turn around and say, stop, I don't like that. And we teach the phrases that help the children to learn how to manage those sorts of situations. So we teach them, stop, I don't like that, put your hand out, it's a fire breaker, isn't it? Stop, I don't like that. Or stop, you're hurting my feelings. Or even just stop, and that should be enough. And we teach the children that stop should be used by adults and by children as well. It's, if someone says stop, it should mean stop, and that's it, isn't it? But being able to teach them the strategies, if someone is making them feel cross, eventually start to creep in. But it's sometimes only when things have occurred that they think, hang on, what did I do last time? And over time that starts to happen more, rather than the behaviour occurring. So sometimes it can be literally because a child really wants that car that their friend's playing with. They've had it for ages. They've actually been over and said, can I have a go with that car? And their friend says, no. And they go, well, I'm having it. And they snatch it. And then they've snatched it. And then they get a whack in the face because I've snatched the car off you and you don't want me to snatch it. And then they're having a big old argy-bargy, aren't they? Whereas when you're going back and looking at behaviour later on, they start to realise, if I go over there and I say, can I have that car? They're going to say no. So they edge a little bit close and they say, I really like that car. Can I have a little go? And we teach them how to say, it's okay to say no, because they're still playing with it. I'm not going to go over it. Like, go, Mrs. Yates, they're not letting me have that car. And I say, they're not letting you have it because they're playing with it. And that's okay. They don't have to give it to you straight away, but you can go over and you can say, please, can I have a turn in 5 minutes? Should we go and get the sand timer and give them the strategies to be able to manage the need to have that toy right now, this very second? It's things like that, isn't it? It's getting underneath the behaviour that you see that ends up in being bitten or being scratched and things, because 9 times out of 10, I can guarantee you, it is because a child is irritated because they really want something and they can't have it now. And we're in a society where everything is instant gratification, aren't we? I need it now and I can buy it off Amazon or wherever, and I can get that delivered tomorrow. And I think our actions sometimes follow that pattern as well, don't they?
And you've touched on so many points, but I want to draw on the biggest one there, Mel, is the idea of the child patiently waiting. No one recognizes the child that waits for so long. Internally to them, 5 minutes could be 5 years.
Literally.
Or the child that is waiting for the hour, but we don't recognize that until they blow up or they have a meltdown, because they're realizing, not only have I not been heard, but I haven't been seen. So what I've just engaged in, which I have followed the rules and I have done what I'm told and I have been respectful, and it didn't work because I'm now still being punished because I wasn't able to maintain that for longer. For what? How long? Like until the other child says yes. But the other thing is that child might never say yes, because that child is also trying to learn empathy. And we talked about this in the previous episode about, is sharing really caring? And that idea of like, okay, well, teaching the children as the strategies you've described is more awareness of, well, look, that child also wants to play with the car, and recognizing, yes, you can put in boundaries, but also putting in boundaries that you're both happy with, that both children are heard, both children are seen. And a child is never getting to the point of, I'm following everything you're telling me to do and I'm still not getting anywhere, so let me try a different approach, which is typically, I won't follow the rules. And you can understand that.
Yeah. And I think also the biggest part of behaviour management and regulating is relationships, isn't it? If you've got relationships built with those children, they're more likely to come to you as an adult and say, Mrs. Yates, they're not sharing with me. And that's when you can have those conversations to say, it's okay if they don't want to share with you now. Shall we go and play with something different? Or would you like me to come over so that we can try and agree something together? If they haven't got that relationship with you because you're perceived as a shouty teacher that's just going to go, no, right, you have that, and then that's it, job done. You're not teaching them the strategies that they need to be able to regulate their behaviour and to manage turn taking and sharing. So while you're playing with them in continuous provision, that's when you've got the perfect opportunity to say, look at that beautiful teamwork. I love the way you take turns and the way that you share. So you're signposting them to it. They're seeing that within daily provision, but because you're down at their level and you're playing with them, you're approachable. If it goes wrong, you're there to offer comfort. And if someone's been unrealistic and saying, no, you're not having it ever because it's mine and I'm keeping it, then you can then go up and say, actually, you've had this for quite a while now. Shall we get the timer and shall we have 5 minutes? Or tell you what, why don't we go and find something different, or see if we can find something similar, or maybe you could play together. Widening those strategies, it's the strategies and the supportive use of them that's more supportive in the long run, isn't it?
And it's what you've highlighted there as well, is at no point are you telling the child what to do.
No.
It's always coming from them, as in they're going, okay, am I comfortable with this? And am I happy to, like you said, widen that kind of boundary a little bit more, but all the time respecting what the child is saying in a way that they're still learning those social interactions, because you do need to be able to cultivate social interaction skills to a certain level to be able to survive and to be able to work with your peers in a productive, collaborative way. So you're doing it in a way that you're not shutting down the child and saying, I know as the adult you have to share. That's my view. Yeah. You're not putting that on the child, and nor should you, because that's not going to help anybody. If anything, then you'll have 2 upset children.
Yeah.
And that's not going to benefit anybody.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to share my packet of crisps with anybody. It's
boundaries, maybe just one, maybe get another. Yeah.
sharing is an adult construct, isn't it? It's one of those things that we want our children to do desperately, because that helps everybody to feel involved. But sharing is something that has got to be collaborative. It's not a one person directed thing. So while you're working together, you're talking about, well, actually sharing, what is it? It's taking turns, it's letting someone else have a go, and it's having an enjoyment with not just yourself, enjoyment with other people as well, isn't it? So promoting sharing in your classroom is essentially promoting turn taking, promoting a collaborative enjoyment of an activity. And those are the things that you need to draw upon within your continuous provision, the opportunities that you provide for children to practice those skills.
Absolutely. I nearly need to get you on for another episode, Mel, and we'll add to the is sharing really caring. We'll have to do like a whole sequence, because that really kind of got people going. But what I do want to do is I want to give time to your PhD research, because this is such an interesting topic, the idea of basically understanding everything that you've talked about. And I can see how you've come to this idea of, well, sticker-free approaches. So can you talk a little bit about your actual PhD to the extent that you can, as we're very aware we're still in the data collection stage, but whatever you can share would be great, Mel, just even to give an idea of what you're looking at and what you're finding.
So basically, the intention isn't to say, ban stickers, that's it, they're completely the wrong thing, because it's down to personal preference, isn't it? But the reason that I'm looking at a sticker-free classroom is because I want it to be neuro-affirming, neuro-inclusive, and quite often some children who are praised and given rewards, especially if they've got pathological demand avoidant profiles, that adds an extra layer of avoidance because you're trying to put more demand upon them. So it's helping to create a neuro-friendly classroom. The idea of removing the stickers is to say we don't need those extrinsic rewards in order to perform something. We're not using coercive control, we're increasing autonomy so that children have more say over what goes on in their classroom. How do they prefer their successes and achievements to be celebrated? So I'm looking at creating a case study, an embedded case study, looking closely at the lived experiences of 6 children within my nursery to find out directly from them what it's like in a nursery that doesn't use stickers. So it's looking at what our environment and our adults do in the absence of using stickers, and seeing how, when children have achieved something or are celebrating something, what actually goes on in our classroom and how do the children feel about it. So I can't give too much away. I'm trying really hard.
Hold back.
Say too much. So yeah. But
what I love hearing, Mel, is it sounds quite similar to my own PhD research, which was finding out children's experiences of power dynamics with adults and finding that out. So what I learned when I did my PhD was you have your set out topic, and obviously when you give your research to children, the children in my research were the co-researchers, and they use GoPros to record their experiences. But what ended up happening was, by doing that, you have no idea where that research is going to go, which is the exciting part. So I'm very excited to see the fact that both of us are hearing about your PhD research, where it is now, and neither of us know where it's going to go. But that's the exciting thing of children's research. So I'm very excited to hear where that will go. Do you have a title or anything yet, Mel, that we can keep an eye out for, or should we?
In its most simple form, what's it like in a nursery that doesn't use stickers? So just keep looking for that, and beyond the sticker chart.
Beyond the sticker chart, very good.
Yeah.
I might have to steal that for the name of this podcast. Is that all right? Beyond the sticker chart.
yeah.
And then, Mel, where do you hope then? Obviously, you'll have an idea of what you're going to find in your PhD. Where do you hope, or what do you hope is that going to do for kind of discourse around sticker-free practice or sticker-free parenting? What are you hoping to achieve by doing this work?
I guess more than anything is for teachers to reflect on their why. Why do you use stickers? Why do you feel that it's important to use extrinsic rewards? I know in the past I've seen teachers using stickers, and it's been literally like sticker confetti. You sit nice on the carpet, sticker, 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 all the way around, and it doesn't add anything. It's like decoration, isn't it? But I want teachers to reflect on why they use an extrinsic rewards, and actually where is the end to all of this? Because some teachers use stickers in nursery and reception, and you tend to see them much lower down in school. But then as you go further through school, there's other coercive tokens that are used. So there's little prize boxes, or collecting pom-poms in a jar, so that at the end of it you receive XYZ reward. But yet some children won't ever achieve that because they were the ones that were mucking about, so you didn't get your pom-pom in the jar. I want people to think about why they're using what they're using. Is it so that they can control, or is it so that they can reward and praise the efforts of children? And if it's rewarding and praising the efforts of children, how can you do that without using stickers and without using token economies? Because you're extrinsically rewarding when actually children who are intrinsically motivated are more academically successful. So,
which is scary. It is scary. That is very scary. We won't dip into any of your findings, but
no.
That is a key point, because I touched on it slightly in my own work, because I was looking at it as you're looking at it. It's essentially like adult bribery, bribery for children to do as they're told. But the issue I was finding was it wasn't long lasting. So I had an example of a young boy. He was 3.5. And he was constantly pestering, I'm going to say, his peer for the car. So it's quite similar example of what you talked about earlier. But that child had been waiting. He had been waiting a long, long time for this car, was promised the car and never got the car. So what ended up happening was, like you described, snatched the car and ran. But the adult didn't see any of this unfolding because she was very much immersed in her admin work.
Tail end, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just, even with the GoPro camera, that's how it was captured. If I was doing the research directly from the educator lens, they wouldn't have seen this happen, because her head was very much in the admin space. She was doing attendance books. She was filing artwork. She was very much down here. Yeah. And what ended up happening was all she captured was the child running. Stop running inside. Yeah. That's where it started. And what happened was then that's where the sticker started to come in. If you stop running, you will get a sticker. So he got a sticker, right? Straight away. Okay, I promise I'll stop running. Educator gives a sticker. Then what happened though was he runs again later on. I mean, later on being maybe half an hour later, which is quite a long time for a child at 3 years of age, 3.5. And that's when he was threatened. Your sticker will be taken from you if you keep running. And that's where the fear was instilled. Now, the change in the child, from what I witnessed in the video recordings, was quite dramatic. You had this very active, present child who was just being in the moment and exploring their environment, to now completely controlled, completely shut down, very conscious of their actions, not from a conscientious place and being empathetic, but from a fear-based perspective of, I am going to protect this. I want to keep it. And now that's being threatened and being taken away from me, I now have more value in it, essentially. And then the thing about that is, the next day, no sign of the sticker. Like, the sticker's gone. Like, it long term, it's not sustainable. It just induces fear within the moment and then controls the child as and when the adult wants to control the child. Yeah.
And all it does is create the desire for a sticker and not the desire to perform the behaviour. So I just want people to consider why they're doing it, really, and actually who's benefiting from it. Is it inclusive in a society where more and more children are starting school and going through school who are neurodivergent? Are those children actually even getting a look in? Or is it just the ones that conform all the time? So how inclusive are your behaviour policies?
And then I have to ask then, Mel, so say I'm an educator who's listening to this, as per usual, mind blown. Oh, I always use stickers. I didn't realize it was so detrimental or, so fear-inducing, depending on the context. And now I want to completely get rid of them because I just don't want to be a part of that, considering everything you've just said. And I know that's not your approach, essentially banning stickers, but the awareness of stop relying on stickers.
Yeah.
So if you're an educator and you have an educator here listening that wants to go down that lens, they're very much relying on stickers, but now don't want to. Do you have any practical advice on like where could they start? I mean, do they start to use stickers less, or would it be a case of come in one day and do something different that's not relying on stickers? How would you navigate that?
We started with our zero sticker approach actually a year before my research started, before my data collection started, because I started talking to the staff about the language that we use in the classroom and the sorts of things that we can say and do in the absence of stickers. And it took a little while because I had staff hiding in the cupboards and giving them cheeky stickers as if you're not going to find out. And I just say, instead of saying, right, we don't have stickers, I literally just said, can I just ask you why you're using the sticker? What's the purpose of that sticker? So if you're going to go down the zero sticker route, think about holding that sticker in your hand, go to give it to someone, and then think, what extra benefit does that sticker give to that moment in time that couldn't be celebrated in a different way? And I'm not talking about going, oh, well done, yeah, that's amazing, which is really false, and the children see right through it. It's about being genuine, isn't it? Thinking about how you can offer praise to a child without feeling like you've got to give them a sticker or give them a gift or give them something that represents how proud you are. Think about how you can demonstrate that intrinsically.
And then also making sure that you're not using stickers in a negative way, as in to control the behavior towards, you know, the turning from the negative to the positive, and in the way that adults would see it. Because as you've described,
I think it's also got to be a whole team collaboration. It can't just fall onto one person. You've got to sit together and agree amongst it could be just amongst your classroom. It doesn't have to necessarily be whole school, but within your classroom, you can still make a difference, can't you? But in my classroom, we don't use stickers because I don't see the benefit that they bring. And I used to do it all the time. I used to write, Mrs. Yates is really proud of me. I made my own stickers and everything. So I used to be the sticker queen that gave out loads of stickers. But since I've reflected on it, I think actually it didn't actually bring me anything to my classroom. So what benefit are the children gaining from it? So before you go to do it, just think why. Put your stickers somewhere where you can get to them. That's not like banish them completely, but each time you go to use one, think, is there a different way that I could do it? Is there a way that I could do this without giving a sticker? And it's not using proximal praise and still using coercive control through the language that you use and saying, you're good, you're not so good, so I'm saying nothing. And the praise sandwiching things. It's about how can you celebrate the things that are going right and address the things that aren't going quite so right, but without having to do it in a controlling way.
It's funny listening to you, Mel. I think what we've just unlocked is adults have an addiction to using stickers.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily coming from the child's want of sticker.
No,
if it's presented to the child, yeah, I'll absolutely take a sticker. But other than that, it's not necessarily on the radar. But describing adults nearly hiding in presses to just hand out here, just be good for now. Just be good for now. It really paints a really interesting picture of, well, why are we relying on stickers? Why are educators relying on stickers? Now, what comes to mind for me is it's easy, because it's easy to just control or manage behavior. Yeah, it's quicker, it's effective, short term, I'm going to say, but it's not meaningful. Have you thought of any other reasons, Mel, for educators or listeners listening today? Like, what should they be kind of considering when they're thinking about, well, what is the reason I'm doing stickers? What are the negative reasons for using stickers?
The children if you're using stickers negatively, children aren't connecting with you, they're connecting with the stickers. You want to build a classroom that's based on thoughtful, caring, nurturing relationships, not based on the fact that the children thinking, yes, sticker time. And they want to come into your classroom and go, do you know what? I love this classroom. It is amazing. It's such a supportive space, and it gives me everything that I need to be able to thrive and be successful in the classroom. and it's not based on, I wonder how many stickers I can get today. And it's trying to change that mentality of parents as well, and thinking, if I collect my child from the door at the end of the day and they've got 64 stickers on their jumper, then they've had a really good day. It doesn't indicate a good day at all. You can have a really good day without having stickers, and finding a way to approach that and say, instead of, you haven't got millions of stickers, what went wrong in your day? Just what went really well in your day today? And they should be able to tell you without going, I've got a sticker. What did you get your sticker for? Smart sitting. I tidied up. I've got a sticker for tidying up. Yeah, because that really helps your educational journey, doesn't it?
And it's crazy, Mel, because I'm just thinking as you're talking, it is very much a competitive environment, because you are petting and pushing.
Sticker.
You're pitting children against each other. And then actually, yes, I do see the layer of parents, because they do, like you described earlier, like you were saying, if your son doesn't come home with stickers, you have that in your kind of parent lens of, well, you want your child to be succeeding and you want them to do well. And, that whole element of stickers, if that's coming from the school, parents, of course, are going to buy into that. Oh, well, your child didn't get a sticker, mine did. And it's bragging rights. So parents are feeding into it as much as the children are, because the children are seeing, well, my mom or my dad are very proud when I come home with a sticker. And when I don't come home with a sticker, I don't get as much attention, or I don't get as much praise. So it's actually instilling another level of competitiveness in children, where from a very young age, and I've touched on this in my own work as well, from a very young age, we're teaching children to compete against each other, not work with each other. So it's interesting to see the basics of just giving a sticker is actually cultivating that competition that's not healthy. It's putting children against each other in a way of, well, now I've more than you, ha, I'm better. There's no recognition of, strengths of working as a team, or recognition of, oh, well, I can help you here. It's not collaborative at all. It's very much like, I'm better than you, or you're less than. Yeah. So it's a very harsh dynamic.
It's creating individual challenges, isn't it? It's like you say, it's saying you're not good enough. And actually, when parents see children standing at the door and they've got loads of stickers, they soon work out which children have got loads of stickers. Why does that child always come out with a jumper full of stickers, but these children don't? And they start watching them to think, well, why did they get loads of stickers? So they can soon work out if it's because that child has additional needs, and they need those stickers to help them to get through the day, because otherwise their day isn't considered as successful. But also they can work out what their child isn't doing, and sometimes it can give the wrong perception about their day as well, can't it? But by pitting children against each other and going, I've got a golden sticker here, I've had this off the head teacher, it's amazing, it's a super special sticker that's well out of your reach, you're never going to get one of these because I'm dead amazing. And everything is just about competitivity, isn't it? And saying you're not good enough, you can't have one of these. It's almost an unreachable goal, one of those super special stickers, when it's not about the sticker, it's about the feeling that you instill in that child, isn't it? And if you can instill a sense of accomplishment, achievement, proudness, then that's far better than any sticker is ever going to give a child on a jumper, isn't it?
What a wonderful note to end on. I think that was fabulous, Mel. Honestly, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Just so much more beyond a sticker-free approach, but the whole behavior awareness, cultivating the environments of safety, and then recognizing those very detrimental practices that we've normalized just in different ways, whether it's traffic lights or stickers or treats on a Friday, or, you can use messy play if you're good, all these different ways we condition children. But essentially it's beyond conditioning behavior, because as you've very clearly highlighted, it's the coercion of children's behavior and controlling children that we very much want to highlight so that we can generate better awareness. Yes. Mel, you have inspired so much wonder and awe in this topic, and I know people will get an awful lot from this. So thank you so much for sharing your work. Best of luck in your research. We will have you back when you have more that you can share, please. But thank you so much for sharing what you've done so much, and well done in all your work so far.
Thank you for having me. It's been great to have a chat and a catch up and share all my news and things. Thank you.
We will have you again. Don't worry. I have your details. Thanks so much,
you.
Mel.